So right now you're sitting with a lot of cash and you're asking yourself, should you invest in property or should you just continue saving with the bank?
So what we are going to do is that we're going to look at both the pros and cons, savings versus property investing. Even though we are property investors, I guess we'll be a bit lenient on it. So if I'm going to compare property investing versus savings, the first thing that actually comes to mind is management. I know, especially as a beginner, when it comes to property investing, you want to self-manage the property itself. And I mean, it's a no-brainer. If I'm going to be saying that if I've got cash and I'm putting it in a savings account, I know that I'll be saving it. So I do not need to stress. I know that every time I get a call from a tenant, it's stress. A tenant will never call. I'm not sure. Have you ever had that call level, that high level, how are you doing? When a tenant calls, I already know that it's a problem. So looking at it from a management perspective, I know that with savings, I don't need so much stress, especially when it comes to managing it. I can put in an interesting betting account, come back after 20 years and hope that all went well, man.
Yeah. So from my side, the pro is that it's liquid. My money is liquid. So now depending on which unit trust or depending on which interest bearing account have you actually put that money in, it's actually liquid. So now say for instance, if it does happen that my car breaks down today and I need all of my money, I can actually go sometimes to a bank and tell them that, you know what, I want to cancel this policy and I need all of my money back. In that way, I'm able to actually get money whenever I actually need it. However, that could be a pro and a con depending on how you are actually looking at it, right? It's a pro that if I really do need the money, I can actually get access to it. However, it's also a con that if I do really need the money, I can actually get it. How does that become a con? Because now, most of the time it does happen that an emergency does actually come through and you need to actually take out money from that. If you can't actually touch your money, you are going to come up with creative ways of actually getting that money. However, if you can easily access that money, then it becomes a problem that do you actually reach your goal faster if you have a problem at that particular point in time?
It's very important that you actually read the terms and conditions because, man, those are real. T's and C's right till the end. I mean, we were in a situation whereby we had to request that money, and fortunately we knew that we have one opportunity to ask for a certain percentage. So even though we did get chowed in terms of interest rates, however, it did come in our favor, whereas in property, it's gone. There's nothing that we can do, man.
And now sometimes something that you need to actually take into consideration is that sometimes you might actually need money to actually grow at a faster rate, right? So what do I mean by this? Say for instance, right now you have 100,000 actually saved in your bank right now. And now an opportunity comes through, someone is actually selling their car at a fast pace and they just want 20,000 of this particular car. And now you are able to sell the same car at 80,000. Now, in that way, the returns on what you have in the bank and the returns on what you actually will get from that particular car, it's really different. So now, it might be a pro and it might also be a con.
100%, man. Also sustainability. Looking at sustainability of how long will it actually give you, because with financial institutions, especially putting it in the bank, I mean, they don't get tired. There's no wear and tear. So now you know that even over time, I will be getting the same percentage or might increase. However, now if I'm investing it in something else that there is wear and tear, ultimately that will, because even with property investing, as much as there's appreciation, let us also look at you managing the property itself. That takes money out of your pocket, especially if you've got tenants.
Exactly. So now let's go to the cons of savings. So now with savings, the first thing that I'd actually like to speak about is your interest rates, right? So now your interest rates sometimes are so low that the inflation rate is actually beating your interest rates. What do we mean by that? Say for instance right now, if bread is actually increasing at a rate of 10%, I'm not saying it's at 10%, I'm just saying that, say for example, bread is actually increasing at 10%. And now with this bread actually increasing at 10%, you invest 10 Rand into a interest bearing account. And then they are saying that they would actually give you at 5%. This basically means that in you taking that money and putting it into an account, it's actually losing value of 5%, because now if bread was actually 10 Rand and now it has actually increased by 10%, that basically means that you would actually getting bread at 11 rand. However, in your interest bearing account, you would actually be getting 10 rand 50. So in that way, inflation is actually beating whatever that you are actually getting in your bank.
Quick question, man. How much is bread right now?
Bread right now, it's 19 rand Albany.
When you were in high school, how much was bread there?
I think around, let's not expose age, but it was around 10 rand.
It was about 10 rand, right? So it goes without saying that you need to be aware of inflation every time you invest.
Just make sure that when you do actually invest, check at what rate is inflation going at, and then look for an interest-bearing account that will actually beat inflation.
Another con is that minimum risks equals actually minimum returns. So when you're looking at your interest accounts, and I know that they actually differ from one institution to another, there are others there whereby they tell you that it's high risk, and then there is also a high possibility of you losing. However, again, we always speak about this level that risk is actually relative from one individual to another. Like I can tell you now with property investing, whether you like it or not, it is high risk. When we are looking at investments according to with a perspective coming from property investing, you know that you cannot match the two. With property investing, it's quite crazy when it comes to the risk that you're taking, because it's solely dependent on how well do you know what you're doing. Whereas now, if I'm looking at with investments account, these financial institutions, they've been here, I think, way before you came through, Lim.
I think way before I was born.
Before the 10 rand situation. So now looking at it in that way is that they already know where to put the money in. So they also have expenses. So hence with their interest rates, it's more of minima. So with a lot of cases that if you know what you're doing in terms of property investing, and then you're going to compare it with banks, it's a no-brainer whereby there's minimal risks. So you know that you are rather playing the safer route. However, that will depend from one individual to another, that is this con a pro or a con according to them, because some people are addicted to high risks, whereas others want to play it safe.
It's like Neo. Neo is that guy that will actually jump off a cliff without a parachute, hoping that he will actually fall into the water when we're actually speaking about investing.
I think we actually jumped into a pool last time promoting our event. Hey, that was cool, man. We'll just have something for you here.
Epic. So now, when you're looking at that particular situation, and now Neo being a very high risk person, there are certain institutions that actually allows for people to actually invest their money with a high risk. However, something that I want to bring to your attention is that with high risk, it means that the greater the returns. However, sometimes you might actually get a loss. I remember Neo once invested in a certain policy, and they promised him that he would actually get X amount, right? If we're going to be putting a value at it, say for instance, they promised him that he will actually be getting 80,000.
No, but that was too much, man. Use 5,000 type of things, man.
80,000. So now with the 80,000, when he actually received his money, he got around 70,000. So now you need to understand, if you're going to be investing in a high risk savings account, you do actually take the risk that if the market doesn't actually perform, you might actually be losing money. And if it does actually perform, then you would actually be getting a greater return rather than someone that went for a low risk account.
I mean, you're absolutely right, because I mean, as a normal person, you've got money and then you want to invest it. I was just thinking that I'm focusing on whatever they promised me, whereas not understanding, is this shares? Is this, what type of shares is this? Is this a unit trust? What type of unit trust is this? Or even when I cancel the policy, how am I going to be penalized by doing so? Because with some policies, there are financial constraints that are associated to the type of investment that you opted for. Goes back to the T's and C's, man.
So let's go to property investing. If you do actually want to become a property investor, make sure that you do send us an email at property@nongwealth.co.za, or go down onto the description and go to a Calendly link. Make sure that you hit that link and set up a Zoom meeting as soon as possible, so that we can actually speak more about property investing.
And as soon as you send that Zoom meeting, it's done. Like, it's official. We are on. You don't need a second or third confirmation that we'll be having a Zoom.
I'd like to end off with the pros of property investing. Let's go on to the cons. Earlier on, we actually spoke we spoke about being liquid, right?
Yeah.
So now with property investing, you're actually illiquid. If you take your 1 million and you put it into a property, it's going to take you a while to get that 1 million back. It's not like you can just call your banker and be like, you know what, I want my 1 million back. Now, also depending on how fast of a market did you actually invest in. But make sure that you're keeping around 2 to 4 months for you to actually sell that particular property. So now, if you don't have access to your money and you have actually invested 1 million in a property, that basically means that if you want that 1 million, you need to resell that property. And now reselling the property doesn't necessarily mean that you might actually get that 1 million, especially if you need it as soon as possible. You might end up getting around 850,000. And that's something that you need to be comfortable with, especially if you want to sell the property as soon as possible.
Quick game. Let's play a quick game with you guys. How long do you think it would actually take you to raise back, because it's cash flow positive? So let's because it's cash flow positive, you bought it via cash. Let's just say that you are making 8,000 a month as your net. 8,000 a month as your net. How long do you think it will actually take you to make your money? Please pause this video right now and just send us the number of years, and let's see. Just guess, guys. I don't take out the calculator, man. So again, one of the cons, it's actually hard to bash property investing because this is what we love. But however, I think it's very important that people know what they're putting themselves in. So I think another important thing is that people really need to understand that not all properties are for investment. You can never go wrong in property. They are absolutely right. You can never go wrong in property. Go very wrong. The statement of you can never go wrong in property is not true. When you do go wrong in property, it's really bad because it can affect your credit status, it can affect your marriage, it can affect you from actually reaching your financial goals. So we need to actually understand that what type of properties are we buying and how are they contributing towards my end goal. So because at the end of the day, that's why we're investing into property, for financial freedom or generational wealth. So ultimately, we need to be understanding, how does this property feed off to my ultimate goal? If I'm taking money out of my pocket every month in terms of making cash flow negative, I need to really question that, what is my end game? Not unless if there is an end strategy that I'm just holding on to this property for the next 2 months or 2 years, and then I know for sure that at the price that I bought it, I will be making way more than I actually spent. It's very important that you have the end goal in mind.
So when I hear big loss, first thing that comes to mind is that you're going to pay school fees anyway. It's either you're going to pay it using a loss, or you're actually going to pay it by actually equipping yourself with the necessary information so that you can limit the risk that you might actually attain. Say for instance, right now, going back to the situation that we had earlier on, that you invested 1 million in this property. Remember, you have your transfer costs that you need to pay. You have your estate agents that you need to pay. And if you are actually going to be selling your property at 850,000, it's easy for you to actually make that loss of 150,000. So now that's something that you need to understand, that if you are going to go into property investing without the necessary skills or necessary information, you might actually be losing a lot.
And the terrible thing about this is that you only realize when you are in that situation whereby you just bought the property and then you're like, but I'm not making any money from it. Or you just bought the property and then you want to sell it and then nobody wants to buy it. So you need to actually understand all the technicalities that are involved in the property game. I like using the chess analogy, and I'll use it again. Property is very technical. You need to know the rules of it so that you can ultimately win. If you do not understand how to move the king or the queen, then it's a mess. So ultimately, you need to send us that email and let us have a conversation, or even better yet, attend one of our events.
Let's go to the pros of investing in property. Property has been proven as one of the best ways to actually grow generational wealth. The reason behind that is that
you know what you're doing.
If you know what you're doing and you're really buying the right properties. If you are actually going to be buying the right properties and you are actually growing your portfolio, this could easily be given down from one generation to the next generation if you're actually doing everything correct. And now that next generation do not really need to understand what's actually going there 100% in terms of how do I actually go down into the numbers. However, their portfolio will actually be kept if they do not really understand what's going on. So now that's something that I want you to consider, that if you do actually want to grow generational wealth within your family, then you might actually want to think about starting your property journey as soon as possible.
What I really like about property investing is that the reason why you are tuned into Normal today is because of property investing. The reason why we've actually grown our network internationally is because of property investing. It's actually crazy how property investing has actually pushed us to the limits whereby I didn't think that I could host property events across South Africa, but property investing did that. I mean, coming through under one roof, bringing in engineers, bringing in financial advisor, bringing in doctors, bringing in chefs, like everybody coming in together, that, guys, how can we come together, create a network and actually invest into property? Man, we're all about invest like a pro. So property investing is quite personal to me and I really love it. I guess you can even see it even by the look in my eyes. But my point today is that property investing gives you the opportunity to decide whether do you want capital gains or do you want passive income. Capital gains in terms of I'll be flipping a property and getting gains from that property if I knew what I was doing. So I'll be getting that lump sum after selling. Ka-ching. Secondly is rentals. So rental actually enables you to get cash flow. Again, if you know what you're doing, you are able to identify it. Is this a good property or not? If it's not, you can easily swipe left. If right, swipe right. This video was perspectives from property investors, and we'd like to understand where your money is at. Which vehicle do you prefer? Let's hear it. Even though it's not one of the two that we spoke about today, let's just hear what's on your mind.
Make sure that you do comment. If you found value in this video, leave us a like and also subscribe. Share it with someone that you think that this person really needs to hear this.
I want to know, where's your cash at?
Nongwab
signing out.